Hi guys, happy Friday or Saturday, depending on where you are on the dateline. Because as I say this, I'm in Jackson, Tennessee for the Miss Volunteer America pageant. It was a trip getting here. Aside from the pageant itself, pretty much everything that went wrong, that could go wrong, did go wrong, including cancelled flights. At least I got a large travel credit out of it. But I apologize first off if there's noise, and obviously the video is not the normal quality because I'm on roaming data here. The Wi-Fi I can't use with my laptop. It's Jackson. It's perhaps not the tech center of the world. So I had to turn down the quality just to be able to record this. But I just wanted to take a moment to explain why I came halfway around the world to see this pageant, and it may help you understand why you're doing pageantry, whether to keep going in pageantry. And I really came here. I mean, I interviewed Haleigh Ryan Hurst. I think I've said this late last year, and she's an amazing young woman. And so the way my brain works goes, okay, I'm interviewing Haleigh. Like when you read off Haleigh's resume, it's ridiculous. I put up a clip of me reading it just as a joke. It was like 2 minutes. It took me 2 minutes just to dictate, to say her resume. But if someone is that accomplished and then decides to dedicate the little free time they have to a certain system, it gets me thinking, like, what's going on here? There must be something about that system. And at the time, I hadn't heard about Miss Volunteer America outside of Haleigh's participation. And it turned out that it was a relatively new system born out of, you know, a, a bit of a, let's say, clash of values or things not being done correctly with the old Miss America system or something. The details of that aren't important. But the fact remains it's a fairly new system. But the people running it are not new. They're pageant veterans. As I've witnessed firsthand, they really know what they're doing. And they're very well connected. But I'm getting off track. So Haleigh mentioned Berkeley, who is the current national title holder. In 2 days' time, she won't be because she would have passed on her title to the next deserving queen. But she mentioned Berkeley, and Berkeley sounded amazing. And so I asked Haleigh to connect the two of us so that I could interview Berkeley. And then when I interviewed Berkeley, like Haleigh, was similarly amazing. So and the way they were talking about the system was different to a lot of other conversations that I've had. Um, you don't get on a pageant interview and have the girl talk badly about their system. I mean, that just doesn't happen because that's not going to work in the land of pageantry, is it? But the way they were speaking about, and specifically in such glowing terms about the organization, and they mentioned one thing in particular that really I hung on to because it'd been something that I had been struggling with, which is in pageantry, you tend to either have one of two, like, systems or ways or priorities. Let's say you have on one hand the very glamorous ones, like the model-esque ones. I think the biggest, most exaggerated example of this would be Miss Grand. Now, I've made it quite clear that I'm not the biggest fan of Miss Grand, especially recently, but it is what it is. It's very model-esque. Put it this way, when the girl walks on stage, they flash up her measurements. Again, I don't like that, but that's how model-esque it is. Yes, the girls talk about advocacy. Is it the highlight? Don't think so. Then on the other hand, you have Miss America style systems. So scholarship systems, I guess you could call them, but ones that are very much focused on not just an advocacy, but actually having to do something and having to live something. It's very easy to talk about an advocacy and not do anything, especially using social media if you're good with that. You can kind of BS your way through it and make it look like you have this advocacy when you don't really. It's like you went to this page and suddenly you're so passionate about the environment. Now you're over here and suddenly you're so passionate about education. And then you went there and now you're so passionate about mental health. I mean, it's possible, I guess, that you're passionate about everything, but something doesn't seem quite right. But I was thinking more and more, and I hadn't interviewed that many Miss America contestants, but the ones that I had, and from watching some of them on social media, including like former title holders, they spoke differently. And it did remind me of the way that both Haleigh and Berkeley spoke, which is very articulate. They very intelligent, very educated. And by the way, educated and intelligent are not the same thing, but they were both. And the whole thing with the scholarship is, it's given a cash value, but you have to use it for your education. So if you're going to college, for example, these girls have proven at the very least that they're able to dedicate and commit themselves to finishing a degree or some sort of coursework. And I think behind the scenes, I was kind of going, I'm more and more liking what I'm hearing in terms of the conversations that I was having with girls that came from that sort of the scholarship system. I'm not going to just say the Miss America style, because Miss America is not the only one, although it's probably, at least at this stage, the biggest and most well known. But I became more and more interested in that. I mean, if you've watched any of my interviews over the years, you very well know that I have no interest in talking about more gossip, first off, but, fashion. What's the color of your dress? Are you so excited to, wear this jewelry? And oh my God, the crown. None of that really interests me. You can't talk for an hour or 2 hours and have people breaking down emotionally on your interviews because you're talking about the color of their dress. It doesn't happen. And so I, I felt like I needed to explore more of this style of system. But this style of system actually really only exists here in America. As far as I know, there isn't like a scholarships pageant system. I could be wrong. If I am, let me know. But a pageant that gives away scholarships as the prize, I don't think it exists in Australia or the UK. And I say that because those are the three sort of countries where I focus on the most. Australia obviously is where I'm normally based. That's my home center. Then I focused on the UK and now more recently in America. But this sort of scholarship system only really exists in America. And moving forwards with business and with growing the pageant project and specifically focusing on coaching as well, I really felt it was important that I got to know like the lay of the land, like what was going on here, because these girls sound different. They speak differently. And I need to understand why, like what's going on. And so I interviewed more, well, I was going to say I interviewed more and more of the Miss Volunteer America girls than I did. But I actually had decided before that I was going to come over here almost as a business research trip. I needed to understand what was going on with these scholarship type systems and also what was going on in sort of the southern states where pageantry is still a big thing. It's in the blood, so to speak, at least for the women. It's either like pageantry or cheerleading or both. And I needed to understand that too, because that also doesn't exist in Australia. I I would argue probably it hasn't grown or shrunk in the last. I mean, I've been doing this about 10 years. I think it has shrunk, actually, if anything, now that I'm thinking about it. The UK, I think, is probably holding steady. But even if pageantry was to completely die down in those two countries, I still think there would be pageants here in the southern states, and specifically these scholarship systems. Because, a prize package where they say, oh, you get a photo shoot, or you get injectables, or whatever it is. I mean, that's nice, maybe, depending on how you feel about that sort of stuff, if you want to be a model. But I think for most people, anyone who wants to study, and it costs an arm and a leg here in America, it's not cheap anywhere, but, here it really costs an arm and a leg, that ability to graduate debt free, which is something that I've heard many, many times in my interviews now, is a really big deal. Because then you're starting adult life without having $50,000, $100,000 worth of debt hanging over you. Which brings me to my experience here so far in Jackson with MBA. And it was immediately different. And in a couple of ways. First off, the girls seemed so happy, like genuinely happy, not the one where you have to pretend you're happy, but they seem to be really enjoying the entirety of their experience. And I know sometimes that's the case, and maybe often or even usually that's the case. But they really seemed to be enjoying their time here, even though I'm sure they're as sleep deprived as anyone else. I think I think what they were enjoying was the way they were being treated here. Someone mentioned that the girls get treated like celebrities, and they really do. So, Jackson is hardly the biggest city in Tennessee, let alone the world. But there were numerous businesses around here that got involved and hosted the girls. I think you had the mayor of the city come in and talk or do something. So it's very entrenched in the community. And the girls really enjoyed being taken around. I think it was in a bus and going to like Hub City Brewing, I think it was. I think I saw some of them doing 10-pin bowling. They were all sat at desks with their states printed in front of them, and they were signing autographs, and had all these young girls wanting to have photographs with them. Again, that doesn't happen very often. And I was having a discussion. Here's my dissertation. Here's where I get to my point. I was having a discussion with a couple of the state directors, and they had asked me for some advice on certain things, which I won't go into detail here. But I asked them, okay, what you want to grow your pageant? Okay, you want to grow your state Miss Volunteer pageant. One of the things you're going to have to answer is what makes it different. In marketing, we call that your unique selling proposition. There are other words for it, other phrases for it. But basically, what sets you apart? Why should I, if I'm a pageant girl, why should I enter your pageant versus any other pageant? And people usually say, oh, girls have a great time. It's a chance to network, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, okay, but no pageant ever says, well, we hate everyone. You're going to meet the most horrible people in the world, and we're really only here to take your money, right? Do you know what I mean? So it's like, you really need to not just say the best value, lowest price, and, best products, lowest prices. It's like, no one's going to say worst products, highest prices. So what really is the point of difference? And we were having this discussion, and then one of the directors said this phrase, which really hit home with me. It's like, we make the girls feel valued. We make the girls feel valued. Because we've been talking about fun. They had said, oh, well, our pageant is fun. And as I said, like, no pageant is saying our pageant is terrible and miserable. Every pageant is saying that it's fun. But even more importantly than what's fun, because you have like things like pizza parties and, as I said, the Hub City Brewing. Yes, it's fun. And that's a big part of it, because you get treated like a celebrity, which in this day and age, very often for pageant girls, they don't get to experience that, which is a great shame. But more important than fun, for most of these types of girls, I believe anyway, these types of young women, it's fulfillment. Fun is temporary. And it can be here one day, gone the next. It's like happy. It's like, okay, I'm feeling happy today. Today I'm feeling less happy. But ongoing, what keeps you going is that sense of purpose. And fulfillment comes from feeling like, I don't know what that sound is. Someone driving way too quickly. Driving on the wrong side of the road here has been an experience in itself. I'll tell you that. But we make our girls feel valued. And I was saying that's such a brilliant phrase, that you could operate your entire system, and you should operate your system just based on that one tenet. We make our girls feel valued. And what I really love about that is it's not just about having your pizza party or having, a gigantic tour bus to go around. And it's not even about your directors or your state pageants or your local pageants being able to drop a huge amount of money, because very often you can't, especially when you're starting off. But there are so many ways to help the girls feel fulfilled. And I said, look, Miss Volunteer America partners with Salvation Army, if you didn't know, and St. Jude's Children's Hospital, which has an amazing story behind that. I credit Miss Michigan, Lydia Fisher, for telling me a lot of the story behind that. And the person who founded it was incredible. But, helping people, helping young children medically for free in this country goes a long, long way. And I said, yeah, okay, we can certainly have some fun in the pageant, but what I think the girls would really enjoy is a chance to go and do some work, like volunteer. Imagine like if you're in Tennessee and you take them for a tour to St. Jude's, and you see the work they're doing there. You see the children who are going through, I don't know, cancer remission or leukemia or things like that. The parents are there, and the only way they can do this is it doesn't cost anything, and the only way they can do that is through generous donations. And you imagine the sort of fire that could light underneath you, if you're a pageant girl listening to this, or if you're a director wondering about this, it's like you don't have to just think about fun and happiness and having balloons and streamers. Yes, that's important, but there are so few, from my experience anyway, there are so few pageants that make the girls really feel valued. Like they're really part of the team, not just saying it. Because everyone will say it. But when you leave a pageant, and I will bet dollars to donuts that when this pageant finishes on Saturday night, that of course if they didn't win, some of them are going to be disappointed. That's normal. If you care, you're competitive. You don't like to lose, in inverted commas. I certainly don't. Um, but if I ask them, was this worth your time? I think that's the real kicker. And, are you coming back next year? I mean, the state title holders probably can't because you can only have your state title once. But how did you feel coming here? I think they're going to say, I had an amazing time. I got treated like a celebrity. I got made to feel important and I got made to feel valued. Like I was welcome here. Like I was part of something bigger than myself. And I think that, along with the production values here, the stage here, so to give you an idea, it's sort of a traditional stage. It's done up very nicely. When I say traditional, it's like when you go into a theatre and there's the lower level of seats and then there's a higher level of seats, like the balcony. So it's like two tiers. Can hold, I don't know how, it's Carl Perkins Civic Centre, by the way. But the stage is not just some stage they dragged out from a high school, a high school musical or some school set stage or some dingy pub or bar. It is a proper stage. And when I first got in there on the first night, I saw all these cameras on mounts and all this equipment, which I just immediately went, okay, this is where it's at. Because to have that sort of production quality, rather than just having, a mobile phone propped up on the judge's desk doing an Instagram live, which they can, they forget to shut off after the thing is done. So if you want to make the girls feel valued, you have to make them feel special. So the part of it that I also really liked was the glamour. It wasn't just a public speaking competition. Yes, you had the girls feeling valued, and as I already said, they talk differently, they articulate very well, but yet it also gave them their moment on stage. And they have talent, so they have talent, they have the health and wellness, gown, and then interview. Each one is equally weighted, 25%. I was most interested in talent. Having interviewed a lot of the girls and knowing what some of them were going to do for talent, I couldn't wait to see the talent. Again, because that's something doesn't really exist in Australia, I feel. And I was kind of worried because sometimes I see the talent. I played the violin since I was 2, for example. And so sometimes when so I have a very musical ear, and sometimes when I hear people performing, I think, oh, okay, good try. I will clap for it, obviously. But it really was, as I know that sounds terrible, but you have to understand from I spent years in school orchestras and things like that. If I had played some of those notes, I would have been yelled at. But the talent here, by and large, was amazing. The woman who won last night's talent, Grace Hurdle, I interviewed her, Miss New Jersey volunteer. She sung opera, and I kid you not, I'm not just saying this because I like Grace and I've interviewed her. Her performance was immaculate. I don't remember the name of the piece she performed, but I did recognize it as soon as she started singing it. And it has, what, like opera style singing is different to pop singing. You have to hit the high notes, but almost make it feel very smooth and effortless. And it's just like one wave of crescendo. And she absolutely nailed it. And she won, which I was really happy for her, because you kind of have this preconception that if you're going to win talent, you need to do something that's modern and, more hip than opera singing. I mean, bear in mind, no one could understand a word probably of what she was singing because it wasn't in English, and yet she won because she had that certain stage presence, and the technical difficulty, I think, was off the charts. But I mean, she wasn't the only one who performed well. Lydia herself sung The Wit I Have Nothing, did absolutely amazing. Her outfit really complemented that. Haleigh herself had her spoken audios of her struggles with her speech impediment. I assume it was about her speech and feeling silenced and getting laughed at. And she had that going on in the background while she was performing on stage a sort of contemporary dance. That was powerful. Tonight, Bailey Joy Martin will be doing her ventriloquism routine with Rita, which I'm really looking forward to. But the fact is, this pageant, at least again, just from my personal experience, it makes they speak differently. They're intelligent, articulate, because I think they have that drive to not only study, but the career ambition outside of just wanting to be a model. And I'm not saying anything against being a model. I'm just saying these girls want something different to just wanting to be on stage. So they're articulate. They feel valued here. They get treated like celebrities. And I think we need that. So you have the intelligence, you have the glamour side of it. And that's, I think, what we need is those two parts working together. You want the advocacy, the philanthropy side of it, which these girls have worked so hard. I think like Berkeley, someone said Berkeley had traveled, it might have been 60,000 miles. I don't know if that's right. I traveled like 12,000, 10,000 miles to get here. But Berkeley and I got a photo with her last night, which was amazing. I was so glad I got to get that photo because she's an amazing woman. But the hard work is absolutely important. The philanthropy, the heart of pageantry. But then you have to have the glamour as well. You need to have the girls have their moment, feel valued, because that's exciting for them. Every young woman, I think, I don't want to stereotype, but I think everyone wants their moment on stage, and these girls had it, whether it's in the gown, the health and or whatever it is. And so I think there's a unique combination here, because again, like go back to the scholarship thing, like if you win, that's your education sorted. You get to graduate debt free, whether it's an MBA, a bachelor's, a master's, whatever it is. And that is a pathway to a different life. And so there's a real interesting combination here with making the girls feel valued and creating a system and sort of with the right people around it that makes the girls really love their time here. I've not seen it. I think not this mix of enjoyment of glamour, intelligence, and the ability to perform as well on stage. I mean, the talent, as I said, that's what I was most looking forward to, and they were genuinely amazing. I mean, not everyone hit the mark for me. That's personal preference, but the skill level was undeniable. I was very glad to see a couple of violinists on the stage last night. And quite funnily, I have my jacket hanging up there, and a lot of the women have they have the support team, and they have their face on badges. And I got a couple of badges on the first night, and as a joke, I posted on my Instagram story of anyone else wants to give me a badge, and now I have 4. And maybe after tonight I'll have more. I think maybe by the end of the pageant I'll just have them all over my tux and all over my back at this rate. But the other thing that I really love, I'll close on this, the visitation they have at the end of every night, which is where the girls, after going on stage and they come back down and they get to meet with their friends and family and fans, and it's wonderful because you actually get to talk to the girls. There's so many pageants. Like the girls work all the time in rehearsal. They're on stage and then bang, it's done. It's over. It's like, oh, I feel like I'm missing something here, right? So actually being able to interact with the girls during the pageant experience, like there's visitation on night 1, night 2, night 3, and then Queen's Ball on night 4. To actually get to interact with the women on stage and get to see what they're about and, say you did amazing, and you really get to see how gracefully they handle themselves, how hard they're working, how many, how many of them are losing their voice. So I really love that aspect as well, because it gets the public involved. The public feel like, hey, this is worth my time. I didn't just travel to Jackson to see my girl perform on stage for 5 minutes and then that's it, and then we go home. So overall, I mean, I'm sure as you can tell, I've enjoyed my experience here so far. And I think this sort of system is the sort of system that I'd really like to delve more into, because a lot of the other systems out there, they have their scandals, they have directors that are just acting like petulant children. And I really don't want to encourage people into systems like that, or to say those systems are great when they're not, or frankly, even to use my platform as tiny as it is. I don't want girls saying, oh, this platform is great, when I know that it's not, and it's very publicly not. But this system overall has been great. My experience has been great. And I think they're really onto something here. But again, it comes down to making the girls feel valued. And I think that's been a really interesting revelation that I've had during my time here. Just sounded like Agent Smith from The Matrix. If you get that, you get that. But yeah, so that's been my experience here. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I got into my hire car the other day and sat on the wrong side and wondered where the steering wheel was because the steering wheel was on the other side. So it's been an experience and a half. Kind of already planning next year's trip here. We'll see. But if you're a director watching this, make your girls feel valued. You want a point of difference. Most girls, when they go to pageants, especially if they don't win, they don't feel valued. They feel like they were cannon fodder, just there to make the winner look better. And if you are a woman competing in pageants, you could do worse than entering Miss Volunteer America from what I've seen. But more than that, look for a system that makes you feel valued and that really aligns with your goals. And if your goals do involve getting a certain level of education, start looking at the scholarship systems. Because what use, if you want to study an MBA and it's $50,000 a year, what use is a photo shoot going to be for that? Or having your nose done. I think the roof's about to come down on me. They're renovating this hotel as we speak. So I'm going to leave it there. Hope you have a great week, and I'll speak to you next time.